The reality with league-winning players is once you get past the guys like Christian McCaffrey, Tyreek Hill, CeeDee Lamb, those types of guys that obviously have league-winning upside, league winners are coming from mid to late rounds of your fantasy football drafts. And the reason I don't come out with like 10 or 20 different "these guys will win your league" videos is because there are very few guys that are like Nico Collins, Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp several years ago who come out in the middle to late rounds and end up winning your league. So this requires a lot of research for me to determine my best guesses for who the league winners are going to be, and these are the guys that I've come up with. We're going through 4 league-winning wide receivers for you to draft in 2024 fantasy football. And I will give away 5 free FN hats this week if I hit 11,000 subscribers by tomorrow, Wednesday, August 21st. And the way to get a chance to win one of those free hats is to go down there, drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and give me your favorite sleeper defense for 2024. So please go down there, drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and let's go ahead and give me those sleeper defenses as well. So let's go ahead and just start out with number 1. Nico Collins of the Houston Texans, I believe, is a league winner this year. So on ESPN, he's going at around 37 overall ADP. So basically, back of your 3rd round, like beginning of the 4th round type of deal if you're in a 12-team league, and going mid-4th round if you're in a 10-team league. So with Nico Collins, just looking on the screen of what he did last year on a per-game basis, there's obviously some weaknesses that we can go through here when we're talking about Nico Collins. He's not getting Amon-Ra St. Brown, Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, Tyreek Hill volume on a per-game basis, right? He got 7.27 targets on a per-game basis last year, but he was extremely efficient with what he did in his work. Obviously getting 8 touchdowns, and then obviously had close to 90 reception yards per game on basically 5.5 catches per game. So the big question I think with Nico Collins heading into this year with CJ Stroud is how much more efficient can he get, if he can get more efficient at all, or can he even remain that efficient with every single touch that he has? And that's a logical question that I've actually asked myself over and over with Nico Collins. Guys like Brandon Ayuk are in that category as well. And that's the one thing that is very, very not sticky in fantasy football is when you look at the yards per receptions on a year-to-year basis for wide receivers, very rarely, as you can see on the screen, do they stick the following year. It's extremely rare that they end up sticking basically in the same spot or around that spot. So the other question that people have with Nico is, since the addition of Stephon Diggs, and even a lot of people think that Tank Dell is the rightful number 1 wide receiver, where does it leave Nico Collins? For some people think he's the wide receiver 3. Let me just address why he's not the wide receiver 3. You do not give a wide receiver 3 on your team over $50 million guaranteed over the next 3 years. You just don't do that. The NFL is a business. There is no team in the NFL who's giving a wide receiver 3 that much money in guarantees. It just doesn't happen like that. So we can squash that right away. And just looking at what he's done for them in the preseason so far, which is not the regular season, but he is in on basically 100% of the starter snaps with CJ Stroud and Stephon Diggs. While Tank Dell is the more hybrid piece. He comes in at 11 personnel. He comes in sometimes with the starters, but he's not in there all the time. So all indications through the preseason, again, it's not the regular season, but what we have seen is that Nico Collins is the number 1, while Stephon Diggs is probably the number 2. So at the very least, he's the number 2 wide receiver based on money that he got paid and based on the snap count percentages that we have seen so far throughout the preseason. And so when I look at the upside for Nico Collins, because we know the opportunities will be there, because he will be a number 2 at the very least. The upside with a player like Nico Collins in this offense with CJ Stroud is astronomically high. He is projected right now by Vegas Insider to be the 2nd leading quarterback in passing yards this year. CJ Stroud, that is. So all those yards have to go to somewhere, right? There's a very high likelihood, in my opinion, that they'll have 2,000-yard wide receivers, whether it's Nico and Tank Dell or whether it's Nico and Stephon Diggs. We'll have to see how it plays out, but I would say it's pretty likely that 2 of those guys do that. Nico Collins taking another leap with CJ Stroud this year just makes a lot of sense to me. When you get the opportunity right out of the gate, and you already had a very, very good year with CJ Stroud in his first year, there's no way that they don't build on this in Houston this year. So for me, Nico Collins in this range at the back of the 3rd round in a 12-team league, middle of the 4th round in a 10-team league, this is elite value for a player who legitimately if things go well, could be a top 5 wide receiver in the NFL. What we need to see from him is that volume go up, which could or could not, but we also just need to see extremely efficient play. And based on what he did last year and with the quarterback, I'm betting on the efficiency still being good. And I'm also betting on the fact that Nico Collins probably leads the team in targets this year at the wide receiver position. Now, the next guy that I want to talk about here is DJ Moore of the Chicago Bears. DJ Moore is going even later than Nico Collins. He is going 48.9 ADP off the board on ESPN. So again, basically at the back of the 4th round in 12-team leagues right here, like right at the back of the 5th round of 10-team leagues. So this is a guy who is extremely mid-round value, gives me very, very similar vibes to Cooper Kupp several years back with the Rams, in my opinion. So again, very similarly to Nico Collins, DJ Moore ends up getting a massive pay raise in 2024, just a couple weeks ago, as a matter of fact. Nico Collins, DJ Moore, they're both by far the number 1 paid wide receivers on their respective teams. Now, I'll address the argument, money isn't everything when you get on the field. I agree with that. I mean, we've seen guys like Kenny Golladay over the last several years, even Miles Sanders last year, getting paid the bag, per se, but not doing anything when they're actually on the field. But there is a fact of it, which is that when the Giants paid Kenny Golladay, they tried to get him the ball. He just wasn't good enough, but they tried to get him the ball. Miles Sanders for a long time last year, he was given plenty of opportunities. He wasn't good enough. DJ Moore, we know for a fact, is good enough to handle it. Just based on what DJ Moore did last year, he had 8 targets per game and 80 reception yards per game and 8 touchdowns with Justin Fields at the quarterback position. Now, I have always liked Justin Fields, but if we're all being honest with ourselves, we already know. At this point, just watching Caleb Williams absolutely sling the football to everybody in preseason, we already know that Caleb Williams is a better throwing quarterback than Justin Fields is. So with this combination of a new quarterback who is the best quarterback prospect since Trevor Lawrence at the very least, getting a guy like DJ Moore as your number 1 is a no-brainer for Caleb Williams to immediately start acting on. Just looking at the wide receivers that are going in DJ Moore's range right here, Devonta Smith, clear number 2 wide receiver in Philadelphia, a lot of times has decent games and a lot of times has really big bust games. So there's no question to me, I'd rather take DJ Moore. Jalen Waddle, clear number 2 in Miami, doesn't get the targets per game that DJ Moore does and probably will this year. Malik Neighbors, right around this range as well. Malik Neighbors, easily going to be the wide receiver 1 in New York, but is really capped with quarterback problems. If we've watched Caleb Williams throughout the offseason, we know that this guy is immediately going to raise the fantasy ceiling of this offense. So the Bears last year, being kind of one of the worst in the NFL in passing yards, it's going to completely flip how this team operates on offense. They're going to be pass first with Caleb and all the weapons that he has. And they actually have a great quarterback to throw to DJ Moore. So DJ Moore showed last year being the sole guy with an above average quarterback based on what he had been playing with the Carolina, that he's an elite wide receiver. Imagine what happens when you bring in a quarterback who actually is going to be extremely good, better than Justin Fields is at throwing the football. DJ Moore is going to be a league-winning type of guy this year, in my personal opinion. Now, the next guy that I want to talk about here, it's a guy I really have been it's been a wild ride this offseason. Rashod Rice of the Kansas City Chiefs, at this point, I believe is a league-winning guy. 93.9 ADP on ESPN puts him right in the middle round area. Round 7, round 8, that's basically where you're getting Rashod Rice. And I can't tell you how on board I am with this at this point. Now, I want to preface this immediately by saying just several weeks ago, like a month ago at this point, I made a video kind of advising my audience, don't take Rashod Rice in a redraft league. Best ball, I'm all in on taking Rashod Rice for sure. But in a redraft league, I advised against picking Rashod Rice, and that was based on the assumption that we were going to get a suspension for Rashod Rice. Well, the problem is, the good thing is that we haven't gotten it, and it looks less and less likely by the passing day that a suspension is going to be coming for Rashod Rice. That's the key to this whole thing. If Rashod Rice were to get a 4 to 6 game suspension, This would curb the league winning upside that he actually has in 2024. But the longer that we go with no suspension, and not even just suspension, there's no meeting that's been playing with the NFL. They're not going to do this in all likelihood this season and before this season. It's going to wait until 2025. So let's take out the suspension. Take that out of the equation. What do we know that Rashod Rice can provide? Well, last year, he quickly became their number one wide receiver on this offense. Keyword wide receiver, and he was very good for them. He ended up getting 10.8 fantasy points per game by the end of the year, was averaging closer to 7 or 8 targets by the end of the year. Obviously, the beginning of the season kind of skews the numbers a little bit, but this guy became extremely important to the Kansas City Chiefs during that playoff run. So Rashod Rice, we already know, comes into the season basically as their number one wide receiver. Now, what I'll add on to it is that obviously Travis Kelce is in his mid-30s, and he's not, at the very least, going to be great for them throughout the duration of the season. I think it could be very much like last year, where he is not very good the beginning of the season and then starts to turn it on when it starts to get closer to playoffs. That's kind of the direction we're heading in with Travis Kelce here. So who does that leave as their clear target, especially at the beginning of the season? Rashod Rice. He's the route runner of the group. And based on what we've seen, again, just preseason, but based on what we've seen, is the clear wide receiver one just based on targets from Patrick Mahomes alone. He's getting all their short targets. He's getting all their mid targets right here. He's opening up a lot of those big plays that are going to Xavier Worthy, who is a good pick too, by the way. But the reality is, the reason that they're both good picks and the reason Rashod Rice has league-winning upside is because if we apply the targets that he's going to get on a per-game basis, which I would imagine this year are probably going to be closer to 8 or 9, give him 150 targets with the Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes. This is a guy who has clear league-winning upside in his range of the draft. And again, you're just not seeing many guys in his range that are going that have this much upside. Chris Godwin does not have this much upside. I'm sorry, but it's just a reality. Chris Godwin is not going to have this level of upside with Baker Mayfield. Amari Cooper, like him a lot, but he does not have the upside that Rashod Rice does with Patrick Mahomes. So Rashod Rice in this range, if you have a draft coming up, you need to take him because his price is rising more and more and more by the passing day because, again, it looks less and less likely that he's getting suspended. And on best ball, the same thing is occurring. Rashod Rice's price is only going up as day by day passes without no suspension talk and no meeting with the NFL. So if you do want to draft Rashod Rice on Underdog today, go to Underdog using that link in the comments below. And when you use code FFN to sign up for Underdog and deposit money, they'll give you a 50% deposit match up to $1,000 right now at this moment in time. This is not lasting forever. So if you want to get in and have them throw free money at you up to $1,000 at a 50% match, go use the code FFN so you can go play around in plenty of best ball leagues. Go play with some pick'em lines on the site right now and go take advantage of this big discount right now. Now, the last guy that I want to talk about here, this is crazy. There's been a revelation in my own head. It's a player that I have not historically liked that much in fantasy. I've always liked the talent, but the translation of fantasy has just never played itself out. Now I'm really considering the reason why because of bad quarterback play. Because I'm telling you right now, I'm starting to see a lot of resemblance with DJ Moore and Terry McLaurin of the Washington Commanders here. This feels very uncomfortable because I'm still relatively early on in my feelings about this. Let's obviously address Terry McLaurin's issues before we go any further. So a guy who has been clearly the wide receiver one in Washington for as long as he's been there, but has had really bad quarterbacks over that time. Now, Terry McLaurin is at the age where he's closer to 30 now, so a lot of people are like, can he really give it an uptick with a different quarterback this year and really actually have league-winning upside? Let me tell you the reason I believe this is the case. Terry McLaurin reminds me of DJ Moore in this moment in time where DJ Moore was in 2023. Because DJ Moore, everybody knew the talent was there. Everybody knew it. The reality was that he wasn't getting the upside that we knew he could bring because of bad quarterback play for years and years with Carolina. He goes to Chicago, clear number one with Justin Fields, and is immediately a top 10 wide receiver in fantasy. There's a chance that we are looking at the same type of unfortunate reality for for years and years with Terry McLaurin, but now that he has Jaden Daniels, I believe this could be his big year. So this is a lot of me banking on Jaden Daniels as a player immediately, right out of the gate. Now, Jaden Daniels is a guy who obviously they spent number 2 overall pick draft capital on. They just announced that he's going to be the starter, to the surprise of nobody. There was no chance he was not being the starter right away. What we've seen so far through the preseason action is obviously Terry McLaurin's number 1. That's not a revelation. Really, the big thing for me is watching Jaden Daniels complete deep passes with ease. That's Terry McLaurin's bread and butter right there. He's also hitting Terry McLaurin in tight windows on the sidelines in mid-route territory. That's the mark of a good, accurate quarterback at the NFL level. A lot of rookies, they can't do that tight window stuff right out of the gate. Jaden Daniels is doing this against first-team defenses when he's playing in the preseason right now. Jaden Daniels is going to raise the ceiling of this entire Washington offense in fantasy football. I'm very much in the early stages of this. I'm rising basically every Washington player right now because I believe in Jaden Daniels. I believe in Jaden Daniels, and as a result, throughout the years that I've watched Terry McLaurin, I've always thought to myself, really talented player, but just hasn't done well in fantasy for one reason or another. I'm either going to get burned by this one really bad because I've never loved Terry McLaurin in fantasy, or I'm going to be really right and we're on to something with Terry McLaurin. And I feel very strongly at this moment in time that we're on to something with Terry McLaurin because of the fact that Jaden Daniels is his quarterback. And again, when I look at his price on ESPN, he's one spot basically below Rashod Rice, 92.2. So I prefer Rashod Rice personally because I have more belief in him. But if you don't have that opportunity, I'm actually more comfortable with taking Terry McLaurin, and I am currently building up my draft stock of Terry McLaurin in best ball leagues because I believe he has league-winning upside. So let me know what you think of the guys in the video below, and if you want to see the most overlooked running back league winners in 2024, click on this video right here.